Chapter 1: The Neolithic Revolution and Early Villages. The Neolithic Revolution, a term coined by V. Gordon Childe, marks a profound and irreversible shift in human history. It was not a sudden, dramatic event, but rather a gradual process that unfolded over several millennia across various regions of the globe. Prior to this revolution, humanity existed primarily as nomadic hunter-gatherers, a lifestyle characterized by constant movement, reliance on wild resources, and a relatively small, mobile social structure. The discovery, or rather the systematic development, of agriculture fundamentally altered this existence. It was the moment when humans began to consciously cultivate plants and domesticate animals, transitioning from merely harvesting nature's bounty to actively producing their own food. This shift was driven by a complex interplay of factors, including climate change at the end of the last ice age, which led to warmer, wetter conditions favoring certain plant species and an increasing population density in some areas, necessitating more reliable food sources. Early farmers observed which plants yielded the most seeds, were easiest to harvest, or had desirable traits, and then consciously replanted those seeds. Over time, this led to genetic changes in the plants themselves, making them dependent on human intervention for propagation. Similarly, animal domestication involved selecting animals that were less aggressive, easier to control, and provided reliable sources of meat, milk, wool, or labor. This process of coevolution fundamentally reshaped both human societies and the natural world around them. Early domesticates varied by region. In the Fertile Crescent, wheat and barley were primary crops, along with the domestication of goats and sheep. In East Asia, rice and millet were cultivated, and pigs and chickens were domesticated. In the Americas, maize, beans, and squash formed the agricultural triad, with turkeys and llamas among the domesticated animals. The most immediate and transformative consequence of agriculture was the ability to produce a surplus of food. This surplus, even a modest one, had cascading effects. Planting, tending, and harvesting crops were paramount activities, demanding communal effort during peak seasons. Sickles with flint blades were used for harvesting grains, grinding stones for processing cereals into flour, and axes for clearing land. Pottery emerged as a crucial innovation, allowing for the storage of liquids, cooking of grains, and more efficient food preparation. Deities associated with fertility, harvests, and the earth were likely venerated. Megalithic structures, such as Stonehenge or Göbekli Tepe, while varied in their specific purposes, point to sophisticated astronomical observations and communal ritual practices. The burial of the dead, often with grave goods, suggests a developing belief in an afterlife and ancestor veneration. These rituals provided comfort, cohesion, and a sense of meaning in a world still largely dictated by the unpredictable forces of nature. The quiet hum of community life, punctuated by the rhythmic sounds of agricultural labor, defined these foundational years. Textiles, woven from plant fibers like flax or animal wool, provided clothing and blankets, improving comfort and protection. Stone tools, while still dominant, became more specialized and polished. Men and women likely shared responsibilities, with women often involved in processing grains, making pottery, and textile production, while men might have focused on heavier labor like land clearing, constructing irrigation channels, or hunting supplementary meat. Gradually led to the emergence of rudimentary social hierarchies. Some individuals might have gained status through their skill in agriculture, their knowledge of rituals, or their ability to organize communal projects. Evidence suggests early forms of craft specialization, with some individuals dedicating more time to pottery making, tool crafting, or weaving, exchanging their specialized goods for food. Children would have begun contributing to household and agricultural chores from a young age. It allowed for the sustenance of larger populations in a fixed location, leading to the development of permanent settlements. These early villages were often built near reliable water sources and fertile land. The typical dwelling was constructed from locally available materials such as mud, brick, wattle, and daub, or timber, depending on the environment. Storage pits, sometimes lined with clay, were dug to protect harvested grains from pests and moisture. Daily life in a Neolithic village revolved almost entirely around the agricultural cycle. Tools underwent significant advancements. Social structures began to evolve beyond the egalitarianism of hunter-gatherer bands. While early Neolithic villages might have been relatively equal, the accumulation of surplus food, religious beliefs, and rituals in the Neolithic period were deeply intertwined with the cycles of nature and fertility. Deities associated with fertility, harvest, and the earth were likely venerated. Megalithic structures, such as Stonehenge or Göbekli Tepe, while varied in their specific purposes, point to sophisticated astronomical observations and communal ritual practices. The burial of the dead, often with grave goods, suggests a developing belief in an afterlife and ancestor veneration. These rituals provided comfort, cohesion, and a sense of meaning in a world still largely dictated by the unpredictable forces of nature. The quiet hum of community life, punctuated by the rhythmic sounds of agricultural labor, defined these foundational years. Chapter 2: The Bronze Age, Cities, Specialization, and Early Empires. The Bronze Age marked a transformative era, primarily defined by the widespread adoption of bronze as the dominant material for tools and weapons. Bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, was significantly harder, more durable, and capable of holding a sharper edge than stone or pure copper. The discovery and mastery of metallurgy, the mining, smelting, and casting of metals, was a complex technological leap that required specialized knowledge and labor. Access to tin, a relatively rare metal, spurred the development of long-distance trade networks, connecting distant regions and facilitating cultural exchange. Early states developed, often led by powerful kings or priest-kings who combined religious and secular authority. These rulers oversaw large public works, managed vast irrigation systems, commanded armies, and administered justice. Bureaucracies, staffed by scribes and administrators, became necessary to record transactions, collect taxes, and manage the affairs of the state. The development of writing systems, such as cuneiform in Mesopotamia or hieroglyphs in Egypt, was a direct response to the administrative needs of these complex societies, primarily for record-keeping of grain surpluses, legal codes, and historical events. In the cities, life was more varied but still demanding. Homes were often multi-roomed, built closely together along narrow streets. Access to public baths and sanitation systems, though rudimentary, existed in some advanced cities. Temples and palaces dominated the urban landscape, reflecting the power of the state and the prominence of religious institutions. Religious practices became more formalized, with elaborate rituals, priesthoods, and monumental temples dedicated to a pantheon of gods and goddesses. The rhythmic sounds of urban life, punctuated by the clanging of metalworkers and the shouts of market vendors, replaced the quiet hum of agricultural villages. The ability to produce agricultural surpluses, established in the Neolithic, continued to grow, enabling greater population concentrations and fueling the development of the very first cities. Below them were a powerful class of priests, nobles, and high-ranking military commanders. Artisans, merchants, and scribes formed a middle stratum, enjoying varying degrees of wealth and influence. The vast majority of the population consisted of farmers and laborers, many of whom were tied to the land or owed labor service to the state or temple. At the very bottom were slaves, often captives of war, or individuals who had fallen into debt. Unlike earlier villages, these urban centers were characterized by monumental architecture, defensive walls, organized public spaces, and sophisticated infrastructure such as irrigation systems and drainage. Routes were established for the exchange of essential raw materials like tin, copper, timber, and precious stones, as well as finished goods. Overland routes utilized pack animals, while riverine and maritime trade routes became increasingly important, facilitated by advancements in boat building. This extensive trade fostered cultural exchange, the spread of technologies, and the transmission of ideas. A significant portion of the urban population could dedicate themselves to crafts, metallurgy, pottery, textile production, carpentry, masonry, and jewelry making. Standing armies emerged, often composed of professional soldiers loyal to the ruler. The development of the chariot revolutionized warfare, providing mobile platforms for archers and spearmen. Conflicts were often waged over control of fertile land, trade routes, or access to vital resources. The successful expansion of powerful city-states led to the formation of early empires, such as the Akkadian Empire under Sargon, or the Old Kingdom in Egypt, which sought to exert control over vast territories and diverse populations. Others became scribes, administrators, priests, soldiers, or merchants. This specialization led to increased efficiency and the production of a wider variety of goods, but it also created new forms of interdependence within society. Cities like Ur in Mesopotamia, Memphis in Egypt, or Harappa in the Indus Valley were not merely larger settlements. They were centers of political power, economic activity, and cultural innovation. Their populations were significantly larger and more diverse, requiring new forms of social organization and governance. The rise of cities led to an unprecedented degree of specialization of labor. No longer was everyone directly involved in food production. To manage these complex urban societies, new forms of governance emerged. Social structures became increasingly stratified and hierarchical. At the apex were the rulers and their families, often considered divine or semi-divine. Trade expanded dramatically during the Bronze Age, moving beyond local exchanges to encompass vast regional and even intercontinental networks. Warfare became more organized and destructive. Bronze weapon swords, daggers, axes, and spearheads were superior to their stone predecessors. Daily life for the majority of the population, particularly farmers, remained arduous. Their labor continued to fuel the entire society. Chapter 3: Ancient Egypt. Life along the Nile. Ancient Egypt, a civilization that endured for over 3 millennia, was intrinsically shaped by the life-giving Nile River. The annual flooding of the Nile, a predictable and remarkably reliable event, deposited rich, fertile silt onto the floodplains, creating incredibly productive agricultural land. Their homes were typically constructed from mud brick, a readily available and effective building material in the hot, dry climate. The pharaoh wielded absolute political and religious authority, responsible for maintaining the cosmic order and justice. Highly skilled goldsmiths, jewelers, sculptors, painters, potters, weavers, and carpenters produced goods for the elite, for funerary rituals, and for daily use. Their exquisite craftsmanship is evident in the surviving artifacts, from intricate jewelry to monumental statues. Workers on massive public projects, such as the construction of pyramids, temples, and tombs, were often skilled laborers, conscripted during the inundation season when farming was impossible, or professional artisans. The army was well organized, employing infantry, archers, and later, chariots. Soldiers were professionals, though conscription could occur during times of major conflict. Punishments for crimes were often severe, reflecting a society that valued order and justice. The sounds of the bustling river, the creak of water wheels, and the low hum of communal labor were constant companions in this enduring civilization. They were compensated with food, beer, and sometimes other goods, rather than wages. Below the pharaoh was a sophisticated and extensive bureaucracy managed by viziers, scribes, priests, and numerous officials. Temples, managed by powerful priesthoods, served as centers of worship, economic activity, and learning. Funerary practices were elaborate and meticulous, driven by the profound belief in an afterlife and the necessity of preserving the body and providing grave goods for the deceased. Journey to the Field of Reeds. Mummification was a complex ritual reserved primarily for the elite, designed to ensure the body's integrity for the soul's return. Ordinary Egyptians were buried in simple graves, though often with modest offerings. Scribes, trained from a young age in specialized schools, were highly respected and held significant power due to their literacy and their ability to record transactions using hieroglyphs on papyrus scrolls. Marriages were generally monogamous, though pharaohs might have multiple wives. Egypt exported agricultural surpluses, papyrus, and crafted goods. It imported essential raw materials like timber, copper, tin, and precious stones, which were not abundant locally. Beyond the Nile, trade routes extended to Nubia, the Near East, and the Mediterranean. Women in ancient Egypt enjoyed remarkably greater legal rights and social freedoms compared to many other ancient societies. They could own property, initiate divorce, conduct business, and hold various professions. Children were cherished, and education, though formal only for scribes and elites, involved practical skills learned from parents and community. These houses were simple, often 1 or 2 rooms, with flat roofs used for sleeping during hot nights or for storage. Furnishings were sparse, consisting of woven mats, low stools, and clay pots for storage and cooking. Daily life for these farmers was arduous, dominated by the agricultural cycle, plowing with rudimentary tools, sowing seeds, maintaining irrigation channels, and harvesting crops like wheat, barley, flax, and various vegetables. Their diet was largely vegetarian, supplemented by fish from the Nile and occasional poultry or meat. This agricultural abundance allowed for the sustenance of a large population and fueled the development of a highly centralized and enduring civilization. The rhythm of life in Egypt was, at its core, dictated by the 3 seasons of the Nile, Akhet, Pare, and Shemu. The majority of ancient Egyptians were farmers, living in small villages clustered along the banks of the Nile or near irrigation canals. At the apex of Egyptian society was the pharaoh, considered a divine king, an intermediary between the gods and humanity. Craftsmen and artisans played a vital role in Egyptian society, particularly in the cities and near major temples and royal projects. Religion permeated every aspect of ancient Egyptian life, a complex pantheon of gods and goddesses, each associated with specific natural phenomena or aspects of human existence, was worshipped. Family life was central. Trade along the Nile was vibrant, with boats serving as the primary mode of transportation. Warfare was primarily defensive, though Egypt engaged in periods of expansion, particularly during the New Kingdom. Chapter 4: Mesopotamia, Cradle of Civilization. Mesopotamia, often referred to as the Cradle of Civilization, was a region of unparalleled innovation, located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern-day Iraq. Unlike the unified Kingdom of Egypt, Mesopotamia was characterized by a succession of distinct cultures and empires, including the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. What united them was their reliance on the two great rivers for irrigation, which transformed the arid plain into an incredibly fertile agricultural zone, capable of producing massive surpluses of grains, like barley and wheat. The most enduring legacy of Sumerian civilization, which emerged first, was the development of the world's first city-states. Cities, like Uruk, Lagash, and Eridu, were independent political entities, each with its own ruler, patron deity, and distinct administrative structure. These cities were often fortified with massive defensive walls, reflecting the frequent intercity warfare over land and resources. Within their walls, they housed tens of thousands of inhabitants, making them among the largest human settlements of their time. Farmers' lives were dictated by the irrigation cycle, building and maintaining canals, plowing, sowing, and harvesting. The agricultural surplus supported a high degree of social stratification and specialized labor. Diet included barley, bread, beer, dates, fish, and some vegetables. At the top was the king or Insi, often seen as a divinely appointed leader, responsible for the welfare of the city and its people, as well as mediating with the gods. Cuneiform, initially pictographic, but evolving into a system of wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay tablets, was primarily used for administrative records, inventory lists, trade contracts, legal codes, and historical chronicles. Scribes held significant social status and were essential for the functioning of the state. Other specialists included skilled artisans, merchants, soldiers, and various laborers. The vast majority of the population were farmers, living in the surrounding villages and working the land. Many were free citizens, but some were tied to temple or royal estates, owing labor or a portion of their harvest. Slaves, acquired through war or debt, were at the bottom of the social hierarchy. Below the king were the powerful priests, who managed the vast temple complexes that dominated the urban skyline. Temples were not only religious centers but also economic hubs, owning vast tracts of land, employing numerous laborers, and serving as storage facilities for agricultural surpluses. A burgeoning bureaucracy emerged, staffed by scribes who were trained in the arduous art of cuneiform writing, the world's first known writing system. Daily life for ordinary people revolved around their work. In the cities, life was bustling. Homes were typically built from mud brick, often clustered along narrow, winding streets. They might be multi-storied, with an inner courtyard. Meat was a luxury. Families were patriarchal, though women could own property and engage in trade, particularly in the later Babylonian period. The development of empires, such as the Akkadian Empire under Sargon, the Babylonian Empire under Hammurabi, and later the powerful Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian empires, saw the subjugation of vast territories and the imposition of centralized rule. These empires relied on military might, sophisticated administrative systems, and often brutal tactics to maintain control. The loud sounds of urban markets, the rhythmic chants of temple rituals, and the distant clamor of conflict were all part of the daily soundscape. Law and order were crucial for managing complex urban societies. The most famous example is the Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest and most complete written legal codes. It established a system of justice based on the principle of an eye for an eye, with punishments often varying based on social status. The code covered a vast array of offenses and disputes, from property rights and commerce to family law and professional malpractice, providing a structured framework for civil life. Trade was vital for Mesopotamia, which lacked many essential raw materials like timber, stone, and metals. Extensive trade networks were established with distant regions: Anatolia for timber and copper, the Levant for timber, the Persian Gulf for minerals, and Afghanistan for lapis lazuli. Merchants used riverboats, donkeys, and later camels to transport goods. This trade not only brought in resources, but also facilitated cultural diffusion and technological exchange. Warfare was endemic in Mesopotamia. City-states constantly vied for dominance, leading to the construction of massive defensive walls and the development of organized armies. Chapter 5: Ancient Greece. City-states, Democracy, and Philosophy. Ancient Greece was not a unified nation, but a collection of independent city-states, each with its own distinctive government, laws, and customs. Despite their political independence, these city-states shared a common language, religion, and cultural identity. Geographic factors, particularly the mountainous terrain and numerous islands, fostered this political fragmentation but also encouraged maritime trade and cultural exchange across the Aegean and Mediterranean seas. To city-states stand out for their distinct societal models, Athens and Sparta. Citizens debated and voted on laws, elected officials, and served on juries. Slaves came from various sources: war captives, debt, bondage, or birth. They worked in mines, agriculture, workshops, and as domestic servants. Worship involved public festivals, sacrifices, and athletic contests. Following these wars, Athens rose to prominence, leading to the Athenian Golden Age, a period of extraordinary flourishing in philosophy, drama, architecture, and art. Oracles, particularly the oracle at Delphi, played an important role in seeking divine guidance. Belief in a gloomy afterlife in Hades was common, though not a primary focus of daily life. Its society was entirely organized around military readiness and discipline. This brutal war weakened all Greek city-states, leaving them vulnerable to external threats. The sounds of lively philosophical debates in the agora, the clamor of a democratic assembly, and the distant, ever-present echoes of training and warfare defined this vibrant, yet often turbulent, civilization. Greeks exported wine, olive oil, pottery, and manufactured goods, and imported grain, timber, metals, and luxury items. Maritime trade was conducted using sturdy merchant ships, connecting Greek city-states with regions across the Mediterranean and Black Seas. From the age of 7, Spartan boys entered the Agoge, a rigorous state-sponsored training program focused on physical prowess, endurance, and absolute obedience. Plato, his student, who founded the academy and explored ideal forms, justice, and the nature of reality, and Aristotle, Plato's student, who applied rigorous logical analysis to a vast range of subjects, including ethics, politics, biology, and physics, significantly influencing Western thought for millennia. Women in Sparta enjoyed more freedoms than their Athenian counterparts. They received physical training and could own and manage property, as their primary role was to bear strong, healthy children for the state. Spartan society was highly stratified, with a small warrior elite ruling over a large population of helots who worked the land. Athenian society valued intellectual pursuits, philosophy, arts, and rhetoric. Women, though citizens, had limited public roles and were primarily confined to the domestic sphere. Sparta, in stark contrast, was a militaristic oligarchy. Daily life for the majority of citizens in both city-states, particularly the non-elite, still revolved around agriculture and various trades. Homes were generally simple, made of mud, brick, or stone, with courtyards and separate rooms for daily activities. Diet consisted of grain, olives, and olive oil, wine, figs, cheese, and vegetables. Meat was consumed occasionally, especially during festivals or sacrifices. Slavery was a fundamental institution in all Greek city-states, providing the labor that allowed some citizens the leisure time to engage in politics, philosophy, and arts. Trade was vital for the Greek economy, especially for cities like Athens that lacked abundant, fertile land. The Persian Wars saw the Greek city-states, remarkably, unite to repel 2 massive Persian invasions, fostering a temporary sense of pan-Hellenic identity. Philosophy thrived with figures like Socrates, who questioned conventional wisdom and ethical behavior. Drama developed with tragic playwrights like Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, and comedic playwrights like Aristophanes, whose plays were performed in open-air theaters as part of religious festivals. Architecture saw the construction of iconic structures like the Parthenon on the Athenian Acropolis, demonstrating an unparalleled mastery of proportion and aesthetic balance. The Peloponnesian War, a protracted and devastating conflict between Athens and its allies, and Sparta and its allies, ultimately ended Athens' golden age and its dominance. Chapter 6: Ancient Rome, Republic, Empire, and Daily Life. Ancient Rome, beginning as a small settlement on the Tiber River, grew to become one of the largest and most influential empires in history, spanning over a millennium and leaving an indelible mark on Western civilization. Its long history is typically divided into 3 main periods: the Roman monarchy, the Roman Republic, and the Roman Empire. The Roman Republic was characterized by a complex system of elected officials, assemblies, and the powerful Senate, composed of experienced statesmen from aristocratic families, while theoretically democratic power largely resided with the elite. The Roman Republic was marked by internal social struggles between the patricians and the common citizens over political rights, as well as by aggressive territorial expansion. The Roman army, known for its discipline and organization, was central to this expansion, conquering vast territories across Italy and the Mediterranean. Daily life in the Republic saw the development of a robust legal system, public works like aqueducts and roads, and a clear social hierarchy. The transition to the Roman Empire occurred with the rise of Augustus. Following the tumultuous civil wars of the late Republic, the empire ushered in a period of relative peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana, which lasted for approximately 2 centuries. During this era, Roman influence spread through strong centralized governance, an efficient bureaucracy, and the maintenance of a massive and highly effective standing army that garrisoned the vast imperial borders. The vast majority of the urban population lived in crowded, multi-story apartment buildings called insulae, which were often poorly constructed, susceptible to fire, and lacked proper sanitation. Below them were the equestrian order, wealthy businessmen and landowners. The common citizens formed the majority, including artisans, shopkeepers, and laborers. Justice was administered through courts, with lawyers and judges, though access to justice and outcomes often depended on one's social standing. Punishments could be severe, including crucifixion for major crimes and rebellion. A vast proportion of the population consisted of slaves, often war captives, or their descendants. The cult of the emperor also became important, requiring citizens to offer sacrifices to the divine emperor. Later, the rise of Christianity, initially persecuted, gradually spread throughout the empire, eventually becoming its official religion under Emperor Theodosius I in 380 CE. Women, while having limited legal rights compared to men, often exercised considerable influence within the household and in social circles. Rome imported grain from Egypt and North Africa, timber from Gaul, metals from Britain and Spain, and luxury goods from the East. Its currency, primarily the denarius, was widely accepted across the empire. Roman children were educated in rhetoric, literature, and history, with boys aiming for careers in politics or military service, who performed a wide range of tasks, from manual labor in mines and agriculture to highly skilled work as teachers, doctors, and administrators within households. While some slaves could gain freedom, they remained at the bottom of the social ladder. Life in these insulae was cramped, noisy, and challenging. However, its legal, architectural, linguistic, and governmental legacies continued to shape the development of Western civilization for centuries to come. The quiet but purposeful hum of a vast empire at work characterized this long historical period. Meat was a luxury, consumed sparingly. The wealthy enjoyed lavish banquets with exotic foods, multiple courses, and fine wines. Daily life in the Roman Empire, especially in cities like Rome, was vibrant and complex. The city of Rome itself was a sprawling metropolis with over 1 million inhabitants at its peak. It boasted monumental public buildings, forums, central public squares that served as centers for political, commercial, and social life. Temples, dedicated to a vast pantheon of gods, mirroring the Greek deities, but with Roman names. Baths, public bathhouses, were not merely places for hygiene, but also important social centers, offering exercise, massages, and opportunities for gossip and business. Amphitheaters, colosseums across the empire hosted gladiatorial contests and other public spectacles, providing entertainment for the masses. Circuses, racetracks, most famously the Circus Maximus in Rome, where thrilling chariot races captivated large audiences. Aqueducts, engineering marvels that supplied fresh water to cities, demonstrating Roman ingenuity and public health focus. Roads, a vast network of paved roads, connected the entire empire, facilitating troop movements, trade, and communication. Housing varied dramatically by social class. The wealthy lived in opulent, sprawling villas with multiple rooms, courtyards, and sometimes private gardens and baths. Social hierarchy was rigid. At the top were the emperors and the senatorial elite. Food for the common Roman typically consisted of bread, porridge, vegetables, olives, and wine. Law was a cornerstone of Roman society. Roman law developed from the 12 tables to a sophisticated system of jurisprudence that influenced legal systems worldwide. Family life was patriarchal, with the paterfamilias holding immense authority. Trade was extensive and facilitated by the Pax Romana and the vast network of roads and sea routes. Religion was polytheistic, incorporating elements of Greek and local deities. The decline of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE was a long, complex process involving economic problems, political instability, barbarian invasions, and internal decay. Chapter 7: Ancient China, Dynasties, Innovations, and Philosophy. Ancient China, a civilization with a continuous history spanning millennia, was shaped by a succession of powerful dynasties, each leaving its unique mark on society, culture, and governance. The concept of the mandate of heaven became a central philosophical and political doctrine, asserting that rulers derived their legitimacy from divine approval, but that this mandate could be lost through misrule, leading to popular rebellion and dynastic change. This cyclical view of history underpinned Chinese political thought for centuries. It was characterized by highly centralized rule, sophisticated bronze metallurgy, the development of early oracle bone script, and elaborate ancestor worship. Early dynasties, the Sita dynasty, Shaya dynasty, is often cited as the first and elders, and the cultivation of Ren and Li. It advocated for a hierarchical but benevolent social order and became the dominant ideology for imperial governance and education. The Shang dynasty is the first with clear archaeological evidence. The Zhou dynasty expanded greatly, but eventually decentralized into a feudal system, leading to periods of intense warfare, the Spring and Autumn period, and the Warring States period. He adopted legalist principles, implemented a highly centralized bureaucracy, standardized weights, measures, currency, and writing, and brutally suppressed dissent. He initiated monumental projects like the early sections of the Great Wall for defense and his vast terracotta army for his tomb. This dynasty is considered a golden age of Chinese history. This system provided a path for social mobility and ensured highly educated administrators. Though short-lived, the Qin laid the administrative foundations for subsequent empires. It believed human nature was inherently selfish and required stringent control. Significant improvements in iron metallurgy, the development of the seismograph, sophisticated astronomical instruments, and advancements in medicine and cartography. This facilitated the exchange of goods as well as ideas, religions. Filial piety was a cornerstone of Confucian morality. Marriages were often arranged, and technologies demonstrating China's profound influence on the wider world. This philosophy would be instrumental in unifying China. Soldiers were generally low status. It advocated for simplicity, naturalness, spontaneity, and minimal government intervention, often contrasting with Confucian emphasis on social order. Life was diverse, with government officials, merchants, artisans and laborers coexisting. Crime was controlled by strict laws and a comprehensive police force. Despite the political fragmentation, this era was a golden age of Chinese philosophy. Philosophical golden age, its innovations, philosophies, and administrative systems had a profound and lasting impact on East Asia and the world. The quiet, rhythmic sounds of agricultural life were interspersed with the occasional imperial decrees, the distant sounds of trade caravans, and the murmuring of philosophical discussions. Confucianism, founded by Confucius, emphasized ethics, morality, social harmony, respect for authority, especially the family Taoism, founded by Laozi, promoted living in harmony with the Tao, a cosmic force, and working the land, primarily cultivating rice in the south and wheat, millet in the north. Agricultural methods were sophisticated, including irrigation, crop rotation, and the use of iron tools. Legalism, advocated by Han Fei and Li Si, was a more cynical and pragmatic philosophy that emphasized strict laws, strong centralized authority, and harsh punishments to maintain social order. Imperial unification. The Qin dynasty, led by the ruthless and efficient Qin Shi Huang, unified China after centuries of warfare. The Han dynasty. The Han dynasty succeeded the Qin and largely retained its centralized structure, but softened its harsh legalist policies by incorporating aspects of Confucianism. Bureaucracy. The Han established a meritocratic bureaucracy, selecting officials through rigorous civil service examinations based on Confucian classics, inventions, and innovations. The Han era saw remarkable technological advancements, including the invention of paper. The Silk Road. The Han dynasty famously opened up the Silk Road, a vast network of trade routes connecting China with Central Asia, the Middle East, and even the Roman Empire. Daily life in Imperial China. Agriculture. The vast majority of the population were farmers, living in small villages. Family structure. The family was the fundamental unit of society, highly patriarchal, with deep respect for elders and ancestors. Housing. Homes varied from simple mud brick dwellings in rural areas to more elaborate tiled roof houses in cities. Courtyards were common, providing privacy and outdoor space. Diet. Grains, vegetables, and some meat. Tea became a common beverage. Social hierarchy. Emperor at the top, followed by scholar officials, then farmers, artisans, and merchants at the bottom. Religion. A blend of Confucian ethics, Taoist philosophy, Buddhism, and traditional folk religions involving ancestor worship and animistic beliefs. Cities. Imperial capitals, like Chang'an, were meticulously planned. Sprawling metropolises with grand palaces, bustling markets, and specialized artisan quarters. The long succession of dynasties provided remarkable continuity and stability for Chinese civilization, despite periods of internal strife and external invasion. Chapter 8. Ancient India. Empires, religions, and social structures. Ancient India, a diverse subcontinent, developed a unique and complex civilization characterized by the rise and fall of powerful empires, the emergence of profound religious and philosophical traditions, and the establishment of a deeply entrenched social hierarchy. The geography, with the fertile Indo-Gangetic Plain, the Himalayan mountains to the north, and the surrounding seas, played a crucial role in shaping its development. Early cultures. It had sophisticated city planning, advanced drainage systems, and a unique, undeciphered writing system. Its decline remains somewhat mysterious. The Indus Valley Civilization, represented by cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, was one of the world's earliest urban civilizations. It was a highly centralized state with a formidable army and a sophisticated administration. As described in Kautilya's Arthashastra, a treatise on statecraft, the Vedic period saw the arrival of Indo-Aryan peoples and the composition of the Vedas, sacred texts that form the foundation of Hinduism. This period also laid the groundwork for the caste system and important contributions to astronomy and medicine. However, after the bloody Kalinga War, he converted to Buddhism and became a fervent proponent of Dhamma, promoting peace, nonviolence, and religious tolerance through his famous rock and pillar edicts spread across the empire. Sculpture and painting reached new heights, often reflecting religious themes. It is characterized by polytheism, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, etc., a belief in reincarnation, the law of karma, and the concept of dharma. The ultimate goal is moksha. He sent Buddhist missionaries abroad, significantly contributing to Buddhism's spread. The path to enlightenment and nirvana involves following the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, which include right understanding, thought, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. The Mauryan Empire, founded by Chandragupta Maurya. This was ancient India's first large and unified empire, spanning much of the subcontinent. Ashoka, the Great, the most famous Mauryan emperor, initially expanded the empire through military conquest. The Gupta Empire, often referred to as the Golden Age of India. The Gupta Empire presided over a period of remarkable peace, prosperity, and cultural flourishing. Science and mathematics. Significant advancements were made, including the development of the decimal system, the concept of zero, the Hindu-Arabic numerals that are used worldwide today. Arts and literature. Classical Sanskrit literature flourished with works by playwrights like Kalidasa, epic poems, and rich poetic traditions. Houses were typically made of mud. Religions and philosophies. While the system provided a form of social order, it also enforced strict social mobility and discrimination. Hinduism, the dominant religion, based on the Vedas, Upanishads, and later texts like the Bhagavad Gita and the West and Maritime. The quiet hum of daily life in villages, the rhythmic chants from temples, and the distant, ever-present echoes of trade caravans characterized this profound historical period. Justice was based on religious and legal codes, often administered by village elders or royal courts. It exported spices, textiles, precious stones and dyes, and imported horses, gold, and luxury goods. Buddhism, founded by Siddhartha Gautama in the 6th century BCE, it emphasizes suffering as inherent to existence, caused by craving and attachment. Jainism, founded by Mahavira, it emphasizes extreme nonviolence towards all living beings, asceticism, and self-control to achieve liberation. The caste system, a deeply ingrained and hierarchical social structure based on birth, which divided society into four main varnas: Brahmins, priests, and scholars at the top, Kshatriyas, warriors and rulers, Vaishyas, merchants and farmers, Shudras, laborers and servants at the bottom. Below the four varnas were the untouchables, or Dalits, who performed the most menial and ritually polluting tasks. Daily life. Agriculture, the backbone of the economy. Most Indians were farmers, cultivating rice, wheat, barley, cotton, and spices. Irrigation systems were crucial. Village life. Most people lived in self-sufficient villages, with extended families living together. Food, largely vegetarian, especially for higher castes, with grains, pulses, vegetables, fruits, and dairy products. Clothing, simple, draped garments like the dhoti for men and sari for women, made from cotton. Trade. India was a major center for trade, both overland via the Silk Road to China. Governance. Empires were typically monarchical, but village councils and local assemblies often managed local affairs. The cultural and religious diversity, combined with periods of powerful imperial unification and remarkable intellectual achievements, make ancient India a rich and complex civilization. Chapter 9. Ancient Mesoamerica. Mayans, Aztecs, and Incas. Ancient Mesoamerica and the Andes regions in South America developed complex and highly sophisticated civilizations, largely in isolation from the Old World. These societies crafted unique solutions to the challenges of their environments, developing advanced agricultural techniques, intricate religious systems, remarkable architectural feats, and distinct social structures. The Maya location, southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Golden Age. The classic period saw the flourishing of great city-states like Tikal, Palenque, and Chichen Itza. Agriculture. The Maya relied heavily on intensive agriculture, particularly the cultivation of maize, which was the staple crop, along with beans, squash, and chili peppers. They developed sophisticated farming techniques suited to their diverse environment, including terracing, raised fields, and slash-and-burn in others. They featured towering pyramids, elaborate palaces, observatories, and large plazas. Urban centers. Maya cities were not densely populated in the European sense, but were ceremonial and administrative centers, dominated by monumental architecture. Bloodletting and human sacrifice were practiced as rituals to appease the gods and maintain cosmic balance. And a large class of farmers and laborers. Slavery existed. They developed two interconnected and highly accurate calendars, the 260-day Can and the 365-day Hob. The combination of these, the calendar round and the long count calendar, allowed them to precisely track time and predict astronomical events. Northern Maya cities continued to thrive until the Spanish conquest. They were highly advanced in mathematics, utilizing a base 20 number system and the concept of zero, allowing for complex calculations. It had causeways connecting it to the mainland, canals for transportation, a complex drainage system, and impressive temples and palaces. The central ceremonial precinct, with the Templo Mayor, was the heart of the city. Writing and mathematics. The Maya developed the most sophisticated writing system in the ancient Americas, a complex hieroglyphic script. Markets like Tlatelolco were vast and highly organized, using cacao beans or quills filled with gold dust as currency. At the top was the Tlatoani, followed by nobles, commoners, and a significant number of slaves. Astronomy and calendars. Their astronomical observations were remarkably precise. This ritualistic warfare was a central aspect of their imperial control. They achieved this through a combination of military conquest, strategic alliances, and effective administration. And alliances built a powerful empire, dominating much of Mesoamerica. They used the quipu, a system of knotted cords, for recording numerical data and possibly for historical narratives. Nobles managed the empire, while commoners provided labor for the state. Ancestor veneration was important, and mummification of deceased rulers was practiced. Nor did they extensively use the wheel for transportation, or advanced metallurgy for tools beyond copper and bronze. Rituals and sacrifices were part of their religious practices, and benefiting from the devastating impact of European diseases, particularly smallpox, which arrived ahead of the Spanish and severely weakened the empire. There was no widespread private land ownership. Land was largely controlled by the state or religious institutions, and the distant sounds of agricultural work define these extraordinary American societies. Religion, polytheistic, with a pantheon of gods associated with nature and celestial bodies. Social structure, hierarchical, with a king, nobles, artisans. Decline. The classic Maya collapse involved the abandonment of many southern cities, likely due to a combination of environmental degradation, warfare, and political instability. The Aztecs' location, central Mexico, with their capital Tenochtitlan on an island in Lake Texcoco, rise to power. The Aztecs were originally a nomadic group who, in the 14th century, established their capital, and through military conquest agriculture, they developed the ingenious Chinampas, highly productive artificial islands built on lake beds, allowing for multiple harvests per year of maize, beans, squash, and other crops. Urban life, Tenochtitlan was a marvel, a massive city with a population estimated at 200,000 to 300,000 people. Social structure, highly stratified. Religion, polytheistic, with a strong emphasis on cyclical time and the need to nourish the sun god Huitzilopochtli with human sacrifices often obtained from conquered tribes as tribute. Economy, based on agriculture, tribute from conquered regions, and extensive trade. Downfall. The Aztec Empire was conquered by the Spanish conquistador in Iwar-Yi, aided by superior weaponry, European diseases that decimated the native population, and alliances with indigenous groups who resented Aztec dominance. The Inca location, the Andes Mountains of South America, centered in Cusco, Peru, and extending along the Pacific coast and high into the mountains. Empire building. The Inca built the largest empire in pre-Columbian America, known as Tawantinsuyu. Agriculture. Master agriculturalists. They adapted to the diverse Andean environments by building extensive terraces on mountainsides, creating microclimates for different crops. They cultivated potatoes, maize, quinoa, and coca. Infrastructure. The Inca were master engineers, building an extraordinary network of roads that connected the vast empire, traversed mountains, and crossed rivers with suspension bridges. These roads were used by official runners for communication and for moving goods and armies. Administration. The empire was highly centralized, managed by a sophisticated bureaucracy. Social structure. Highly hierarchical, led by the Sapa Inca, who was considered a descendant of the sun god Inti religion. Polytheistic, with the sun god Inti as the primary deity. Technology. Notably, the Inca did not develop a written language. Downfall. The Inca Empire was conquered by the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro in 1532, exploiting internal divisions. The quiet but purposeful hum of these ancient civilizations, marked by the rhythmic chipping of stone, the murmur of ceremonial chants. Chapter 10. Ancient Africa. Kingdoms, trade, and enduring societies. Ancient Africa, a continent of immense size and remarkable diversity, was home to a multitude of sophisticated societies, powerful kingdoms, and extensive trade networks that flourished for millennia, often in parallel with or influencing civilizations in other parts of the world. Far from being isolated, Many African societies were deeply interconnected with global trade and cultural exchange. Ancient Egypt, while often studied as part of the Near East, ancient Egypt is fundamentally an African civilization, profoundly shaped by the Nile River and its interactions with Nubian and other African peoples. Its advanced agricultural techniques, monumental architecture, unique religious beliefs, and sophisticated bureaucracy were deeply rooted in the African continent. It was both a trading partner and a military rival. For a period, the Kushite pharaohs ruled over Egypt itself, demonstrating their significant power and cultural assimilation. Its influence extended southward into Nubia and beyond. The Kingdom of Kush, Nubia location, south of Egypt, along the Nile River. They built pyramids and temples, had their own hieroglyphic-based writing system, and worshipped unique deities alongside Egyptian gods. It controlled vital trade in ivory, gold, spices, and frankincense. This led to the development of a unique form of Christianity that continues to thrive today. Relationship with Egypt. Kush was often influenced by and at times exerted influence over Egypt. Culture developed its own distinct culture, combining Egyptian influences with indigenous traditions. Economy, rich in natural resources, especially gold, but also iron ore. Meru, its later capital, became a major center for iron production and trade. Decline, gradually declined, possibly due to environmental changes, loss of trade routes, and the rise of the Kingdom of Aksum. This trade involved a critical exchange of gold from West Africa for salt from the Sahara and North Africa, along with other goods like textiles, horses, and enslaved people. The Kingdom of Aksum location, modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea, in the Horn of Africa, rise to power, grew wealthy and powerful due to its strategic location at the crossroads of major trade routes connecting Africa, the Mediterranean, and India. Its kings were known for their opulence. Religion, initially polytheistic, but Aksum was one of the first states in the world to officially adopt Christianity in the 4th century CE under King Azana architecture, famous for its massive stele carved from single blocks of granite, some over 100 feet tall, serving as monumental grave markers for kings. Writing developed its own script, Ge'ez, which is still used in Ethiopia. Decline, possibly due to environmental degradation, the rise of Islam in the region, and internal conflicts. The West African kingdoms, his famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 to 1325, with vast amounts of gold, brought Mali to the attention of the wider world. Located in the Sahel region, south of the Sahara Desert, these empires rose to prominence by controlling the lucrative trans-Saharan trade routes, which connected West Africa with North Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Kingdom of Ghana, location, modern-day Mauritania and Mali. Wealth, amassed immense wealth by acting as a middleman in the gold salt trade. Capital Kumbi-Salid was a bustling dual city with a separate Muslim quarter. They traded gold, ivory, iron, and enslaved people from the African interior for goods from Arabia, Persia, India, and China, and Islamic influences, reflected in the Swahili language and distinct architecture. Decline, weakened by internal strife and external invasions, particularly by the Almoravids Mali Empire. Location, expanded from Ghana's territory, covering a vast area of West Africa. Founder Sundiata Kata established the empire. Peak under Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa is considered one of the wealthiest individuals in history. Centers of learning. Cities like Timbuktu became renowned centers of Islamic scholarship, trade, and culture, with universities and libraries housing tens of thousands of manuscripts. Decline, weakened by internal disputes, succession struggles, and the rise of the Songhai Empire. Songhai Empire and the murmuring of scholars in ancient libraries all contributed to the rich tapestry of ancient African daily life, and a belief in a supreme being, later influenced by the spread of Christianity and Islam. Location succeeded Mali, becoming the largest empire in West African history. Peak under Askia the Great, further consolidated central authority and promoted Islamic scholarship and trade. Downfall, conquered by a smaller Moroccan force armed with firearms, marking the end of the great West African gold empires. East African Swahili city-states. Location. A string of independent city-states along the East African coast. Economy flourished due to their integral role in the Indian Ocean trade network. Culture developed a unique Swahili culture, a blend of indigenous Bantu traditions. Religion, predominantly Muslim due to centuries of trade and interaction with Arab and Persian merchants. Decline began to decline with the arrival of Portuguese traders in the late 15th century, who sought to control the lucrative Indian Ocean trade routes. Daily life in ancient African societies. Agriculture, the foundation of most societies, with diverse crops suited to different regions. Village life. Most people lived in villages, often organized by kinship. Social structures varied from egalitarian village councils to highly centralized monarchies, but generally included extended families, clans, and sometimes age-grade systems. Religion. Diverse indigenous religions, often involving ancestor veneration. Animism. Oral traditions, history, laws, and cultural knowledge were often preserved and transmitted through rich oral traditions, including storytelling, epic poetry, and griots. The quiet sounds of bustling markets, the rhythmic drumming for ceremonies, the creak of trade caravans. Chapter 11. Ancient America. Life before the Europeans. Before the arrival of Europeans in the late 15th century, the Americas were home to an extraordinary diversity of indigenous cultures, encompassing a vast spectrum of societal complexities, from nomadic hunter-gatherer bands to sophisticated agrarian empires. These societies developed unique ways of life, technologies, and spiritual beliefs in relative isolation from the Old World, adapting ingeniously to the varied landscapes of two continents. North America was characterized by a mosaic of distinct cultural regions, each with unique environmental adaptations. Arctic and Inuit, Yupik, Aleut, Dene. Life revolved around hunting marine mammals and caribou, with adaptation to extreme cold, used ice houses, skin tents, and specialized hunting tools like harpoons. Social structures were typically band level, focused on survival and cooperation. Northwest Coast, Quequetal, Haida, Tlingit, rich in salmon and timber, leading to settled village life despite being hunter-gatherers, using intricate irrigation systems, built remarkable multi-story cliff dwellings and large pueblo communities. The introduction of the horse by Europeans fundamentally transformed their culture, leading to the iconic nomadic buffalo hunting lifestyle. Used teepees, relied on bison for food, clothing, and shelter. Warrior societies were important. The Iroquois formed a powerful confederacy, a remarkable political alliance with a complex constitution influencing later American political thought, highly organized communal life, with kivas central to their spiritual practices. Intensive agriculture supported dense populations, often had hierarchical societies, known for elaborate wooden longhouses, totem poles, and complex social hierarchies based on wealth and lineage, practiced potlatch ceremonies for status display. California, Chumash, Pomo, Miwok, diverse environment, leading to reliance on acorns, fish, and game, generally smaller, decentralized communities with sophisticated basketry. Southwest, Anasazi, Hohokam, Mogollon, developed advanced agriculture in arid environments. Plains, Sioux, Cheyenne, Comanche. Initially, many were agrarian or semi-nomadic. Northeast woodlands, many practiced shifting cultivation, along with hunting, fishing, and gathering. Lived in communal longhouses. Knowledge of plant medicine was highly advanced. Iroquois, Algonquin, practiced a mix of agriculture and hunting-gathering. Lived in longhouses in settled villages. Developed extensive irrigation systems. Southeast woodlands, Mississippian cultures, Cherokee Creek, developed large, complex chiefdoms with monumental earthworks. Commonalities in North America, adaptation to environment, technologies, and lifestyles, varied greatly based on local ecology. Spiritual connection to land, deep reverence for nature and spiritual beliefs tied to the land and animals. Oral traditions, history, laws, and cultural knowledge were passed down through rich oral traditions, storytelling, and ceremonies. Diverse social structures, from egalitarian bands to complex chiefdoms. Trade networks, extensive trade routes existed, connecting distant communities and exchanging goods like obsidian, copper, shells, and furs. Rituals often involved elaborate ceremonies and sometimes hallucinogenic plants, and their complex social and political organizations present a compelling testament to human adaptability and creativity across the vast American continents. The quiet sounds of digging sticks, turning earth, the rhythmic weaving of textiles, and the distant, unseen movements of hunting parties characterized the vast quietness of this immense and varied land. South America. While the Inca dominated the Andes, other significant cultures flourished elsewhere in South America. Amazon Basin, Yanomami, Kayapo, adapted to the rainforest environment. Coastal cultures of Peru, Nazca, famous for their vast geoglyphs etched into the desert floor, often depicting animals and geometric shapes whose purpose remains debated. Mocha, highly skilled potters and metallurgists, creating realistic portrait vessels and intricate gold and silver artifacts. Colombian cultures, Muisca, known for their gold craftsmanship and the legend of El Dorado, which inspired European exploration. Patagonia, Tehuelche, nomadic hunter-gatherers, adapted to the harsh steppe environment, primarily hunting guanaco. Key shared elements across the Americas. Maize as staple, a cornerstone crop for many agricultural societies, especially in Mesoamerica and parts of North and South America. Absence of the wheel. Though the wheel principle was known, it was not used for transportation or pottery wheels due to diverse factors like geography and lack of suitable draft animals. Limited iron metallurgy, stone, copper, bronze, and obsidian were primary materials for tools and weapons. Diverse spiritual beliefs, animism, polytheism, ancestor worship, and shamanism were common. The sheer diversity and ingenuity of these pre-Columbian societies with their unique solutions to environmental challenges, their rich cultural expressions. Chapter 12. Ancient Japan, Shinto, Samurai, and Imperial Tradition. Ancient Japan, an island nation, developed a distinctive and enduring culture, influenced by, but not subservient to, its powerful continental neighbors, China and Korea. Its unique geography, a chain of mountainous islands, fostered a strong sense of national identity and isolation. Yet its proximity to the Asian mainland allowed for significant cultural and technological transmission. Early periods. Jomon period, a prehistoric era known for its distinctive cord-marked pottery and semi-sedentary hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Yayoi period, marked by the introduction of wet trice cultivation, metallurgy, and the potter's wheel, largely from Korea and China. This led to more settled agricultural communities and the emergence of clan-based societies. Kofun period, characterized by large burial mounds for powerful clan leaders, indicating the rise of centralized authority and early forms of a nascent imperial state. This period saw increased contact with Korea and China, including the transmission of writing systems and Buddhism. The rise of imperial power and Buddhism. Yamato clan. The Yamato clan gradually consolidated power and established the imperial line, claiming descent from the sun goddess Amaterasu. The emperor became the symbolic and spiritual head of Japan, a role that continued for millennia, though actual political power often shifted. Buddhism, introduced to Japan from Korea in the 6th century CE, Buddhism quickly gained favor with the ruling elite. It coexisted with, and often influenced, the indigenous Japanese religion of Shinto. Buddhist temples and monasteries, often built with Chinese architectural styles, became important centers of power and learning. It saw the development of distinctly Japanese aesthetics, literature, and art, moving away from direct Chinese imitation. Chinese influence. Japan eagerly adopted many aspects of Chinese culture, including its writing system, governmental structures, and elements of art, philosophy, and urban planning. Heian period. This led to the emergence of the samurai, a warrior class that would increasingly dominate Japanese society for centuries. Refinement of culture. A period characterized by the flourishing of aristocratic court culture in Heian literature, famous for classic works like The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu, considered the world's first novel, offering insights into courtly life. The shogun, a supreme military commander, wielded actual political power, while the emperor remained a revered but largely ceremonial figurehead. Fujiwara dominance. While the emperor remained symbolic, real political power often rested with powerful aristocratic families, particularly the Fujiwara clan, who dominated court politics through strategic marriages and manipulation. Rise of the samurai. As central imperial authority weakened, powerful regional clans began to raise their own private armies to protect their lands and interests. They were skilled in swordsmanship, archery, and horsemanship. The shogunate enforced strict social order and maintained control over the daimyo through a system of alternate attendants. Feudal Japan, the age of the samurai. A vibrant merchant class emerged, and a popular urban culture developed, including kabuki theater, ukiyo-e woodblock prints, and new forms of literature. Shogunate system. After a series of civil wars, the Kamakura shogunate was established, marking the beginning of military rule. Despite the chaos, this era also saw cultural innovation and the arrival of European traders and missionaries. Many became bureaucrats or scholars, though their social status remained high. Samurai code. The samurai became the ruling class, living by a strict code of conduct, emphasizing loyalty, honor, courage, discipline, and self-sacrifice. Zen Buddhism gained significant popularity among the samurai class, influencing their discipline, meditation practices, and aesthetic values. Sengoku period, a period of intense civil war and political fragmentation, with powerful feudal lords constantly battling for control. The Edo period, centralized feudalism, unified by the Tokugawa shoguns. This was a period of remarkable peace and stability. Isolation, to prevent foreign influence and the spread of Christianity. Japan implemented a policy of national isolation, severely restricting foreign trade and contact. Urbanization and culture. Despite isolation, urban centers like Edo, Osaka, and Kyoto flourished, and the rustle of silk kimonos characterized the distinct daily life of ancient Japan. Samurai life. Samurai remained the privileged warrior class, but transitioned from active warfare to administrative roles in a long period of peace and specific places. And Buddhism. People often practiced both simultaneously. Decline. The Edo period eventually ended due to internal economic and social changes, and the external pressure from Western powers, leading to the Meiji Restoration. Daily life in ancient Japan. Agriculture. Rice cultivation was paramount, forming the basis of the economy and diet. Farmers worked communally in rice paddies. Village life. Most people lived in rural villages. Homes were typically wooden structures with thatched or tiled roofs, often with sliding paper screens. Diet, primarily rice, fish, vegetables, and fermented foods like miso and soy sauce. Clothing, kimono-style garments made from cotton, hemp, or silk. Social structure, highly stratified. Religion, a blend of Shinto, indigenous animistic religion, worshipping kami or deities associated with nature, ancestors, arts, and aesthetics. A deep appreciation for nature, simplicity, asymmetry, and refined craftsmanship permeated all aspects of life, influencing architecture, garden design, poetry, and the tea ceremony. The quiet but ever-present sounds of rice paddies, the rhythmic clanging of swords during training, the murmur of Zen meditation. Chapter 13. The Silk Road. Connecting ancient worlds. The Silk Road was not a single, continuous road, but a vast and intricate network of interconnected trade routes that spanned Eurasia for over 1,500 years. It facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, technologies, and cultures between the East and the West, linking Imperial China with the Roman Empire, Persia, India, and various nomadic steppe empires. Its origins can be traced to the Han Dynasty in China, around 130 BCE, with the diplomatic missions of Zhang Qian, and its decline largely coincided with the fall of the Byzantine Empire and the rise of maritime trade routes in the 15th century CE. Geography and routes. The Silk Road consisted of two primary branches. Overland routes. These traversed vast and challenging landscapes, including the formidable Pamir Mountains, the scorching Taklamakan Desert, and the Central Asian steppes. Goods were transported by caravans of camels and horses. These routes were vulnerable to harsh weather, bandits, and political instability. Maritime routes. Later, parallel sea routes developed across the Indian Ocean, connecting coastal China, Southeast Asia, India, the Persian Gulf, and the Red Sea. These routes utilized monsoon winds for seasonal travel and were crucial for bulk goods and perishable items like spices. Key goods traded. It was a luxury item in the West, used for clothing, tapestries, and even currency. Other Chinese exports included porcelain, tea, lacquerware, spices, and paper. Buddhist monasteries and cave temples dotted the routes, serving as rest stops and cultural centers. And then Europe, printing techniques, gunpowder, advanced irrigation systems, and agricultural methods traveled along the routes. Islam later spread westward from Arabia into Central Asia and China along these routes. Christianity also made its way eastward, though less widely, which traveled from Asia to Europe in the 14th century, causing devastating mortality. From China, silk was the most famous and highly prized commodity, giving the route its name. From Central Asia, furs, livestock, military equipment, and jade. Some acted as protectors of segments of the route, extracting tolls and tribute, while others were raiders. They also became exposed to new ideas, technologies, and goods, profoundly impacting their local economies and cultures. Their horse-riding skills and knowledge of the terrain were invaluable. From India, spices, textiles, precious stones, and herbal medicines. From Persia, Middle East, gold, silver, carpets, glass, perfumes, and agricultural products like dates and pistachios. From Roman Empire, Mediterranean, gold, silver, glassware, wool, linen, olive oil, and wine. They often traveled in large caravans for safety, facing immense challenges, harsh climates, long distances, bandits, and political instability. They provided water, food, shelter, and marketplaces for weary travelers and their animals. These towns developed into cosmopolitan centers, attracting diverse populations of merchants, artisans, religious scholars, and entertainers. Life in these towns was bustling, with different languages, religions, and customs coexisting. They were skilled negotiators, multilingual, and often acted as cultural intermediaries. It fostered an unparalleled era of global interaction, laying the groundwork for cultural diffusion, technological advancements, and economic globalization long before the modern era. The quiet creak of camel saddles, the murmuring of diverse languages in bustling caravanserais, and the rustle of silk in distant markets characterized the daily soundscape of this vast historical network. Many merchant communities settled in oasis towns, fostering vibrant, multicultural populations. Beyond goods, the exchange of ideas and technologies. The Silk Road was far more than just a commercial highway. It was a conduit for profound cultural and intellectual exchange. Religion, Buddhism, spread from India eastward along the Silk Road into Central Asia and eventually, significantly, into China, Korea, and Japan. Technology, innovations like papermaking from China to the Islamic world. Art and architecture, artistic styles and motifs from various cultures blended and influenced each other, seen in frescoes, sculptures, and architectural designs along the route. Diseases. Tragically, the Silk Road also served as a pathway for the spread of diseases, most notably the bubonic plague. Daily life along the route. Merchants. These individuals were the backbone of the Silk Road. Oasis towns, settlements like Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, and Dunhuang became vital hubs along the overland routes. Nomadic peoples, various nomadic groups like the Scythians, Xiongnu, Turks, and Mongols played crucial roles. Local inhabitants, The populations living along the routes adapted their lives to support the constant flow of trade, providing food, accommodation, and services. Soldiers and guards, imperial powers, often maintained garrisons along sections of the route to protect trade and collect taxes, highlighting the strategic importance of the Silk Road. Decline of the Silk Road. The overland Silk Road eventually declined due to several factors. Political instability. The collapse of large, stable empires led to fragmentation and increased banditry, making overland travel more perilous and costly. Rise of maritime trade. Advancements in shipbuilding and navigation in the 15th century made sea routes more efficient, cheaper, and safer for transporting large volumes of goods, particularly for Europe and Asia. New technologies. The Portuguese circumnavigation of Africa opened direct sea routes between Europe and Asia, bypassing the overland Silk Road entirely. Despite its eventual decline, the Silk Road's legacy is immense. Chapter 14. The Enduring Legacy of Ancient Daily Life. The detailed study of ancient daily life, of the mundane routines, the simple tools, the fundamental social structures, and the enduring beliefs of past civilizations, is far more than an academic exercise. It offers us a profound and often surprising lens through which to understand the very foundations of our own modern existence. By exploring the quiet rhythms of these ancient lives, we begin to discern the deep and often imperceptible echoes that resonate through the millennia, connecting us intimately to the distant past. The writing systems developed by the Sumerians and Egyptians, initially for simple record-keeping, evolved into the alphabets we use today, allowing for the unprecedented accumulation and dissemination of knowledge. The ethical frameworks of Confucianism, the search for harmony in Taoism, the rigorous logic of Greek philosophy that laid the foundations for Western thought, the spiritual journeys outlined in Hinduism and Buddhism, from the early kings and pharaohs to the nascent democratic experiments in Greece and the enduring legal systems of Rome. Humanity grappled with questions of power, authority, law, and the relationship between the ruler and the ruled. The Roman Republic's system of checks and balances, the Athenian ideal of citizen participation, the Chinese civil service examinations based on Merithy's historical models provided blueprints, both positive and cautionary, for subsequent political developments. We are, in fact, peering into the very foundations of our present. The achievements and struggles of these early civilizations, their ingenious solutions to recurring human problems, their enduring questions about meaning and purpose, all these contribute to the rich, layered tapestry of human history. The quiet study of their daily lives reminds us that we are part of a continuous narrative, beneficiaries of countless innovations and wisdom accumulated over millennia. The distant sounds of ancient lives, the rhythmic grinding of grain, the soft murmur of ritual, the quiet click of a scribe's stylus on a clay tablet, all form a continuous, quiet hum that resonates through the ages, reminding us of our shared human journey. The past, in its detailed quietness, informs our noisy present, offering a timeless perspective on the human condition. The quiet debates in ancient assemblies and the solemn pronouncements of ancient judges still echo in our modern legislative halls and courtrooms. The Abrahamic monotheistic traditions, with their roots in the ancient Near East, the importance of the family unit, the role of agriculture, the reliance on basic crafts for clothing and shelter, the human need for entertainment and ritual, The inevitable challenges of disease and conflict, these fundamental experiences of being human, have remained remarkably consistent despite vast changes in technology and social organization. The way we dress, the food we eat, the homes we live in, the way we commute bear the quiet, subtle imprints of countless generations of practical adaptation and cultural evolution, and spiritual legacies continue to influence billions of lives, shaping our understanding of morality, justice, existence, and our place in the cosmos. Even in secular societies, the quiet whispers of these ancient moral frameworks can be heard in our laws, our customs, and our collective conscience. The concept of zero and the decimal system, perfected in ancient India, are indispensable for all modern mathematics, science, and technology. The precise calendars of the Maya, the monumental engineering feats of the Romans, their roads, aqueducts, and concrete still impress. The invention of paper and gunpowder in China. The sophisticated irrigation techniques developed across multiple ancient agricultural societies. These are not mere historical footnotes. They are the fundamental building blocks upon which our technological world stands. Consider, for a moment, the foundational shift wrought by the Neolithic Revolution. The act of planting a seed and nurturing it to harvest, a seemingly simple gesture, was revolutionary. The urban centers of your Memphis or Tenochtitlan, with their specialized labor, their administrative hierarchies, and their complex infrastructure, were the progenitors of our own bustling metropolises. The very idea of public spaces, of organized governance, of specialized professions, of law codes like Hammurabi's Law, these concepts, refined and adapted, are direct descendants of those ancient urban experiments. The quiet hum of ancient markets, where goods were exchanged and ideas flowed, finds its modern echo in the digital marketplaces and global supply chains that define our interconnected world. It led to settled communities, the concept of property, the need for communal organization, and ultimately, the ability to support larger populations. This basic agricultural cycle, refined and mechanized, still forms the bedrock of human sustenance today. When you see a field of wheat or corn or consume bread, you are partaking in a legacy directly inherited from those first quiet farmers, whose daily toil laid the groundwork for everything that followed. The development of cities in the Bronze Age fundamentally reshaped human society. The innovations of ancient civilizations continue to underpin much of modern life. Beyond tangible inventions, the philosophical and religious traditions of the ancient world continue to shape global thought and morality. The very concept of governance finds its roots in these ancient societies. Even the mundane aspects of daily life reveal continuous threads. In essence, by quietly observing the daily routines of our ancient ancestors, we are not merely looking back at a forgotten past. Chapter 15: Ancient Persia. Empires of the Achaemenids and Parthians. Ancient Persia, particularly under the Achaemenid Empire, stands as one of the most expansive and influential empires of the ancient world, stretching from parts of Europe to India. Its unique blend of centralized administration, religious tolerance, and impressive infrastructure left a lasting legacy. The Achaemenid Empire was founded by Cyrus the Great, who famously conquered the Medes, Lydians, and Babylonians, establishing a vast multi-ethnic state, each governed by a satrap who was usually a Persian noble. This infrastructure greatly reduced travel time and boosted economic activity. The Persians also developed a sophisticated postal system, and used a common currency, the daric, further integrating the empire. Artisans crafted luxury goods, weaponry, and architectural elements for the royal court and elite. Persian art and architecture, characterized by monumental palaces, intricate reliefs, and grand audience halls, blended diverse artistic traditions from across the empire, reflecting its multicultural nature. A military commander oversaw the army, and a royal secretary reported directly to the king. It centered on the eternal conflict between the benevolent god Ahura Mazda and the malevolent spirit Angra Mainyu. They adopted much of Persian culture while successfully resisting Roman expansion eastward for centuries. Becoming Rome's chief rival in the east, life under the Parthians saw continued participation in the Silk Road trade. The quiet efficiency of the imperial administration, the rhythmic gallop of messenger horses, and the murmur of Zoroastrian prayers defined this influential ancient civilization. This system of checks and balances was remarkably effective for governing such a vast territory. His reign was characterized by a policy of religious and cultural tolerance. This benevolent approach fostered stability and loyalty across the empire. Subsequent rulers, like Darius I, further expanded and consolidated the empire. Farmers cultivated grains, fruits, and vegetables, using advanced irrigation techniques such as quinots to draw water from distant sources, especially crucial in arid areas. To facilitate communication and trade, Darius built the Royal Road, an impressive network of paved roads stretching over 2,500 kilometers from Susa to Sardis. Daily life for the majority of Persians revolved around agriculture, particularly in fertile regions like Mesopotamia and the Iranian plateau. In the imperial heartlands and major cities like Persepolis and Susa, life was more varied. The social structure was hierarchical, with the emperor at the apex, followed by the royal family. Religion, the dominant religion of the Achaemenid Empire, was Zoroastrianism, an ancient monotheistic or dualistic faith founded by the prophet Zoroaster. The Persian wars against the Greek city-states, though ultimately unsuccessful for Persia, represent a significant chapter in ancient history, showcasing the immense power of the Persian Empire and the surprising resilience of the Greek Peleus. Following the Achaemenid Empire's conquest by Alexander the Great in 330 BCE, a new Persian dynasty, the Parthian Empire, emerged. Chapter 16: Ancient Celts and Germanic Tribes. Life beyond the empires. Beyond the grand empires of the Mediterranean and Near East, a distinct and often underestimated set of societies flourished across temperate Europe, the Celts and the Germanic tribes. These groups, though lacking the monumental urban centers or centralized empires of their southern counterparts, developed rich cultures, sophisticated social structures, and complex relationships with the classical world. The Celts were not a single unified nation, but a collection of distinct tribes and cultural groups sharing common linguistic roots, artistic styles, and religious beliefs. A prominent class of Druids served as priests, judges, teachers, and keepers of oral traditions, holding significant spiritual and political authority. Below them were warriors, artisans, and farmers. Their influence spanned a vast area of ancient Europe, from Ireland and Britain to Gaul, parts of Spain, and even Central Europe and Anatolia. Sacred groves, natural springs, and hills were important ritual sites. Human sacrifice was practiced in some instances, though less frequently than Roman propaganda suggested. In Britain, Celtic resistance was fierce, but they too were eventually integrated into the Roman Empire. In Ireland, which was never conquered by Rome, Celtic culture, language, and traditions persisted, forming the basis of early medieval Irish society. The quiet sounds of iron being hammered, the murmur of druidic chants, and the distant clash of tribal skirmishes characterized the lives of the ancient Celts. They often had a concept of common assemblies where free men could debate and make decisions. A strong emphasis was placed on loyalty to one's chieftain and kin. They were also skilled craftsmen, particularly in metalwork and woodworking. Trade with Roman territories was significant, exchanging furs, amber, timber, and slaves for Roman goods. Belief in the afterlife and the transmigration of souls was common. They fought with spears, axes, swords, and shields. Their military tactics often involved fierce charges and ambushes. Raiding was a common practice. Rural communities consisted of scattered farmsteads. Homes were typically round houses made of timber and thatch. Worship involved sacrifices, rituals in sacred groves, and ancestor veneration. The shouts of warriors in training, the crackle of hearth fires in longhouses, and the rhythmic sounds of agricultural labor defined the daily lives of these dynamic and influential ancient peoples. Runes were used for inscriptions, but not for extensive written texts until later. Germanic warriors served as mercenaries in the Roman army, and Roman goods flowed into Germanic lands. However, increasing pressure from the Huns and other groups from the east combined with Roman internal weakness led to the migration period during which various Germanic tribes migrated into and ultimately established kingdoms within the former Roman Empire, laying the foundations for medieval Europe. Belief in an afterlife in halls like Valhalla was important. Social structure. Celtic society was typically organized into tribes or clans, led by powerful chieftains or kings. Settlements. Celts often lived in fortified hill forts, which served as defensive strongholds, trade centers, and places of assembly. Economy, primarily agrarian, based on farming grains and raising livestock. They include groups like the Goths, Vandals, Franks, Saxons, Angles, and Lombards. Their interactions with the Roman Empire, initially as traders and mercenaries, eventually led to a period of large-scale migrations and the eventual collapse of the Western Roman Empire. They were semi-nomadic, occasionally shifting settlements for better land or resources. Fortified sites were less common than among the Celts, but natural defenses were utilized. They were skilled in ironworking, producing sophisticated tools, weapons, and chariots. They also engaged in trade with other Celtic tribes and, increasingly, with the Roman world. Warfare. Celts were renowned as fierce warriors, often fighting with great courage, sometimes naked or painted for battle. Their weaponry included iron swords, spears, and large shields. Chariots were used by some groups. Warfare was often localized between tribes or in defense against external powers, like the Romans. Religion, polytheistic, with a pantheon of gods and goddesses associated with nature, war, and fertility. Art and craftsmanship. Celtic art is highly distinctive, characterized by intricate, curvilinear designs, spirals, and zoomorphic motifs, often seen in metalwork, pottery, and illuminated manuscripts. The Roman conquest of Gaul by Julius Caesar largely subjugated the continental Celts, leading to their Romanization. The Germanic tribes. The Germanic tribes were a diverse group of peoples speaking related Germanic languages. inhabiting a vast area of northern and central Europe, from Scandinavia to the Rhine River. Social structure, organized into clans and tribes, often led by warrior chieftains or kings who gained authority through military prowess. Settlements lived in scattered villages of timber longhouses, often surrounded by fields. Economy, primarily agrarian, focused on cereal cultivation and raising livestock. Hunting and fishing supplemented their diet. Warfare, a central aspect of Germanic culture. Warriors were highly valued, and personal valor in battle was a path to status. Religion, polytheistic, with a pantheon of gods associated with nature, war, and fertility. Oral traditions, like the Celts, Germanic cultures had strong oral traditions, with sagas, epic poems, and genealogies passed down verbally by skilled storytellers. Interaction with Rome. The relationship between the Germanic tribes and the Roman Empire was complex, oscillating between conflict, trade, and cultural exchange. The quiet murmur of tribal councils. Chapter 17. Ancient Africa, the Sahel, and the Forest Kingdoms. While the great empires of the Sahel are well known, ancient Africa boasted a far wider array of complex societies, particularly within south of the rainforest belt, demonstrating remarkable diversity in their political structures, economic activities, and artistic expressions. These forest kingdoms and other decentralized vast societies often relied on unique adaptations to their environments and maintained distinct trade networks, which originated in West Africa around 3000–1000 BCE and saw Bantu-speaking peoples migrate across much of sub-Saharan Africa. This was not a single rapid invasion, but a gradual spread of agricultural practices, ironworking technology, and linguistic traditions. The Great Lakes region and Bantu migrations. Bantu expansion. One of the most significant demographic movements in human history was the Bantu expansion. Impact. The Bantu migrations dramatically reshaped the cultural and linguistic map of Africa. They had a structured tax system and a well-organized administration, introducing agriculture and iron technology to regions previously inhabited by hunter-gatherers, leading to increased population density and the formation of larger, more complex societies. Great Lakes kingdoms. In the Great Lakes region of East Africa, the Bantu migrations led to the development of powerful kingdoms like Katara, Baganda, Rwanda, and Burundi from around the 10th century CE onwards. Initially, the Congo Kingdom engaged in a relatively equal partnership, adopting aspects of Christianity and European technology. However, the increasing demand for enslaved people by the Portuguese eventually destabilized and weakened the kingdom, leading to its decline and ultimate absorption into colonial territories. These kingdoms were highly organized, often with strong monarchies and complex social hierarchies. They relied on intensive agriculture and cattle pastoralism. Central Africa, Congo Kingdom location, spanned parts of modern-day Angola, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Republic of Congo. Rise emerged as a powerful kingdom by the late 14th century, controlling significant territories along the Congo River. Produced using the lost wax casting method. These artworks represent high levels of artistic skill and sophisticated metallurgical knowledge, likely serving ritualistic or commemorative purposes for rulers. Its artistic legacy heavily influenced later kingdoms like Benin. Economy, based on highly productive agriculture, skilled ironworking, and a sophisticated network of regional trade, including copper, salt, and raffia cloth. Social structure. hierarchical, with a king at the apex, provincial governors, nobles, commoners, and a class of enslaved people. These artworks demonstrate extraordinary technical skill and provided a visual chronicle of the kingdom. European contact. The Portuguese arrived in 1483, establishing diplomatic and trade relations. West African forest kingdoms, south of the Sahel empires, within and on the fringes of the rainforest. Distinct kingdoms developed that relied less on trans-Saharan trade and more on local agriculture, forest resources, and specialized crafts. Ife location, southwestern Nigeria. Significance, considered the spiritual homeland of the Yoruba people. Ife was not a vast empire, but a city-state renowned for its incredibly realistic and exquisite terracotta and bronze sculptures. Benin location, southwestern Nigeria, east of Ife. Rose to prominence in the 13th century, expanding into a powerful empire. Many societies had complex cosmologies and oral traditions. Art, famous for its stunning bronze plaques and heads, which decorated the royal palace and recorded historical events, royal lineages, and court life. Economy relied on local agriculture, elaborate ironworking, and trade with European powers, exchanging pepper, ivory, and enslaved people for European goods. And the rustle of leaves in the dense forests characterized the daily existence in these vibrant and diverse ancient African societies. Fall, conquered by the British in 1897 during the punitive expedition. Oyo, location, southwestern Nigeria. Power emerged as a dominant Yoruba kingdom, primarily due to its strategic location and its formidable cavalry, which could operate in the savanna environment bordering the forest. Governance, characterized by a complex political system with a powerful king, but also checks and balances from a council of nobles. Economy, benefited from long-distance trade routes connecting the forest regions with the savanna and coastal areas. General aspects of daily life in these African societies. Agriculture, the foundation of most societies, with staple crops varying by region. Village life. The majority of the population lived in villages, organized by kinship, with communal work and shared responsibilities. Social organization varied widely, from segmentary societies with no single ruler to highly stratified kingdoms with elaborate court systems. Lineage and age grade systems were often important. Craftsmanship, high levels of skill in various crafts, including iron smelting and forging, pottery, weaving, and intricate wood carving. Religion, diverse indigenous belief systems, often emphasizing a spiritual connection to nature, ancestor veneration, and the role of diviners and healers. Oral traditions, crucial for transmitting history, laws, stories, and cultural knowledge across generations. Often through griots in West Africa, the quiet sounds of forging iron, the rhythmic beat of drums in ceremonial dances, the murmur of stories passed down through generations. Chapter 18. Ancient Northern Europe, Vikings, Picts, and Germanic Iron Age. Beyond the direct reach of the Roman Empire and the well-documented classical civilizations, Northern Europe developed its own distinct societies during the Iron Age and the early medieval period. These were lands of dense forests, rugged coastlines, and challenging climates, shaping cultures renowned for their seafaring, warrior traditions, and unique artistic expressions. The Picts location, northeastern Scotland. Mystery. The Picts remain somewhat enigmatic. Their name, possibly from Latin picti, meaning painted ones, refers to their practice of body painting or tattooing, art and symbolism. They are primarily known for their distinctive and elaborate carved stone symbols found throughout their territory. These stones depict abstract symbols, animals, the quiet chipping of stone, the murmur of an unknown language, and the splash of their longships in the cold waters defined their existence. And later, Christian crosses, whose exact meaning is still debated but likely served as memorials, territorial markers, or religious symbols. Warrior society. They were formidable warriors who successfully resisted Roman attempts at conquest and later posed a significant threat to Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Fortifications lived in fortified settlements and duns. They were skilled craftsmen, particularly in metalwork and woodworking. Evidence from archaeological sites gives eerie insights into their lives and sometimes their ritual practices. Belief in a heroic afterlife, sacrifices, and a deep connection to nature. Decline. The Picts gradually merged with the incoming Scots, forming the Kingdom of Alba in the 9th century, leading to the gradual disappearance of their distinct culture and language. Germanic Iron Age. This period refers to the Germanic peoples who remained outside direct Roman control, particularly in Scandinavia and parts of Germany not absorbed by the Roman Empire. Their iconic longships, shallow-drafted and capable of both ocean travel and riverine navigation, allowed them to reach distant lands. They were the first Europeans to reach North America around 1000 CE, established settlements in Iceland. Many Vikings sought new lands for farming and established permanent settlements in the areas they raided, becoming farmers, craftsmen, and merchants. A strong emphasis on honor, reputation, and a code of vengeance. And Greenland, and founded key trading posts in Russia. Their religion was closely tied to sagas, mythology, and ritual sacrifices. They gradually converted to Christianity through the 10th–11th centuries. Longhouses provided communal living space. Saga literature provides insights into their laws, feuds, and social customs. The murmur of sagas around a flickering hearth fire and the clang of blacksmiths forging iron defined the daily lives of these northern European peoples. They were skilled woodcarvers and metalworkers, producing intricate weapons, jewelry, and household items. Social structure, typically organized into tribes or chiefdoms, with a strong emphasis on kinship and loyalty to a chieftain. Assemblies of free men made important decisions. Economy, mix of agriculture, pastoralism, hunting, and fishing. Settlements lived in smaller, scattered villages of timber longhouses. Religion, polytheistic, centered around gods like Odin, Thor, Freya. Later, these evolved into large-scale military campaigns, leading to conquests and settlements in Anglo-Saxon England, Normandy in France, Sicily, and parts of Ireland. Art, characterized by intricate animal-style art in metalwork and carvings, often reflecting their mythological beliefs. The Vikings. The term Viking typically refers to the Norse seafaring warriors, traders, and settlers who launched raids, explored, and established settlements across wide areas of Europe, North America, and Russia during the late 8th to 11th centuries. Seafaring and exploration. The Vikings were unparalleled shipbuilders and navigators. Raiding and conquest. Initial forays involved swift, devastating raids on monasteries and coastal settlements seeking plunder and slaves. Trade and settlement. Beyond raiding, the Vikings were also keen traders, establishing extensive networks for furs, amber, walrus, ivory, slaves, and other goods. Social structure, primarily free farmers, with chieftains jarls at the top and a class of enslaved people at the bottom. Religion, initially polytheistic, worshipping a pantheon of gods. Belief in Valhalla for fallen warriors. Daily life, for most, life involved farming, fishing, and skilled craftsmanship. The quiet creak of oars on a longship, the rhythmic crash of waves against a rugged coastline. Chapter 19. Ancient South Asia. The rise of dynasties and trade. Following the decline of the Gupta Empire around 550 CE, ancient South Asia entered a period of political fragmentation, but also continued cultural and economic dynamism. Numerous regional kingdoms rose and fell, fostering distinct artistic styles, religious developments, and robust trade networks, particularly maritime. Regional kingdoms and political landscape instead of one dominant empire. The post-Gupta period was characterized by a mosaic of powerful regional kingdoms. North India, Harsha's empire, a notable attempt at imperial unification by Emperor Harsha, who briefly created a large empire in northern India, known for his patronage of Buddhism and scholarship. After his death, the region fragmented again. Their influence extended to Southeast Asia. Rajput kingdoms. Numerous Rajput dynasties emerged across northern and western India from the 7th century onwards, often engaged in warfare with each other, but also contributing to distinctive architectural and artistic traditions. They were renowned for their spectacular rock-cut temples and freestanding architectural marvels, showcasing a synthesis of northern and southern Indian architectural styles. Pala Empire, centered in Bengal and Bihar. The Palas were major patrons of Buddhism, fostering renowned universities like Nalanda and Vikramashala, which attracted scholars from across Asia. Deccan, they were also active in maritime trade with Southeast Asia. Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas, Hoysalas, these powerful dynasties dominated the Deccan Plateau, engaging in complex rivalries. The construction of elaborate Hindu temples dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu, and Devi became central to religious life and community identity, and later Islamic invasions. Buddhism continued to be patronized by some rulers and remained influential. Its golden age now lay outside India, in Southeast Asia, Tibet, and East Asia, largely due to missionaries and scholars who traveled from India along the trade routes. Bhakti movements, emphasizing devotion to a personal deity, gained popularity. South India. The Cholas were master builders, patrons of bronze sculpture, and, most remarkably, a formidable maritime power. Indian merchants and sailors were central to this network, exchanging textiles, spices, and luxury goods for gold, ivory, timber, and Chinese silks and porcelain. This trade was crucial for the wealth and cultural exchange of the regional kingdoms. Their navy controlled parts of the Indian Ocean and launched naval expeditions against Southeast Asian kingdoms, facilitating extensive trade and cultural exchange. Pallavas, based in Tamil Nadu. The Pallavas were pioneers of Dravidian architecture, building magnificent rock-cut temples and structural temples. Chola dynasty, one of the most enduring and powerful South Indian dynasties, continued flourishing of religion and philosophy, and courtly literature, with new epic poems, dramas, and scientific treatises. Hinduism continued to evolve and flourish, consolidating its various traditions and philosophical schools. And the distant calls of merchants, defined the rich and complex daily life in ancient South Asia during this dynamic period. Buddhism, while declining in its birthplace in India, partly due to the rise of devotional Hinduism, Jainism, continued to thrive, particularly in certain regions like Gujarat and Karnataka, known for their elaborate Jain temples and communities emphasizing asceticism and nonviolence. Economic life and maritime trade. Agriculture remained the bedrock of the economy, producing rice, wheat, cotton, spices, and various vegetables. Advanced irrigation techniques were common. Crafts and industries. India was renowned for its high-quality textiles, spices, precious stones, iron, and various luxury goods. Maritime trade. The Indian Ocean served as a vital highway connecting India to East Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and China. Port cities and Kavarapatinam served as dynamic hubs for international commerce, society, and culture. Caste system. The caste system continued to be a fundamental organizing principle of society, though its rigidity and local variations were significant. Village life. The majority of the population lived in self-sufficient villages, with local councils often managing affairs. Arts and architecture. This period saw extraordinary developments in temple architecture, sculpture, and painting, reflecting profound religious themes. Sanskrit literature. While regional languages began to gain prominence, Sanskrit continued as the language of scholarship, religion. The quiet sounds of bustling port cities, the rhythmic chants from elaborate temples, the murmur of scholars debating ancient texts. Chapter 20. Ancient Southeast Asia. Kingdoms of Srivijaya and Khmer. Ancient Southeast Asia, a region characterized by its archipelagos, peninsulas, and fertile river valleys, developed a series of powerful and culturally rich kingdoms. These societies were profoundly shaped by their strategic location, becoming crucial intermediaries in the maritime trade between India and China, and by the significant adoption of Indian religions and political concepts, which they adapted to their own unique contexts. The maritime kingdoms. Srivijaya location, primarily Sumatra, with influence extending over the Strait of Malacca and parts of the Malay Peninsula and Borneo. Rise to power. Srivijaya was a powerful maritime empire that controlled the vital Strait of Malacca, the narrow passage connecting the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. Buddhist monasteries in Srivijaya were renowned for their learning. Hindu influences were also present. This strategic control allowed it to dominate the lucrative trade routes between India and China. Aromatic woods, resins, and gold. Its port cities became major international trading hubs. Economy gained immense wealth by levying tolls on passing ships and trading in local products like spices, and established the Devaraja cult, associating the king with a deity. They constructed vast and intricate reservoirs and canal systems for irrigation, allowing for multiple rice harvests per year and supporting a massive population, particularly Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom, built by Jayavarman VII in the late 12th century as a Buddhist complex with the Bayon Temple at its center. Religious tolerance was generally practiced, allowing both traditions to coexist and influence each other. These stone structures are among the most impressive architectural achievements in the world, showcasing incredible artistic detail and cosmic symbolism. Religion and learning became a major center for Buddhism, attracting scholars and pilgrims from across Asia, including the famous Chinese monk Yiging Angkor, was largely abandoned after the Thai invasion in 1431. Culture. A vibrant cosmopolitan culture developed, blending indigenous traditions with strong Indian influences in art, architecture, and political ideas. Decline. Began to decline due to shifting trade routes, internal dynastic struggles, and external pressures, particularly from the rising Javanese kingdoms and the Chola Empire of South India. The mainland kingdoms. The Khmer Empire location, centered in modern-day Cambodia, with its influence extending into parts of Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. Foundation. The Khmer Empire was founded by Jayavarman II in 802 CE, who unified various regional principalities, were adopted and adapted by local Southeast Asian societies, leading to unique syntheses. This was largely a peaceful process, spread by merchants and scholars rather than conquest. Agriculture and engineering. The empire's immense wealth and power were based on sophisticated hydraulic engineering. Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom. The Khmer are most famous for their monumental temple complexes, and the rustle of rice paddies in the wind defined the daily existence in these vibrant and influential ancient Southeast Asian kingdoms. Religion. Initially Hindu, but later embraced Buddhism. Social structure. Highly stratified, with the Devaraja king at the top, followed by a powerful priestly class, royal family, administrators, a large skilled artisan class responsible for the massive construction projects, and a vast base of agricultural laborers. Decline. The empire's decline was multifaceted, likely due to a combination of factors: environmental degradation, prolonged warfare with neighboring kingdoms, internal political strife, and the gradual shift in trade routes. Other significant Southeast Asian kingdoms. Pagan kingdom, known for its thousands of Buddhist temples and stupas built along the Irrawaddy River. Mesoamerica Empire, a powerful maritime empire that rose after Srivijaya's decline, controlling vast trade networks across the archipelago, shared aspects of daily life in ancient Southeast Asia. Agriculture. Wet rice cultivation was the dominant agricultural practice, particularly in river valleys and plains, often supported by sophisticated irrigation systems. Maritime orientation. Many societies, especially in the islands, were intrinsically linked to the sea, relying on fishing and extensive maritime trade. Indianization, a process by which Indian cultural and religious ideas, indigenous beliefs, despite Indian influences, indigenous animistic beliefs, and ancestor worship remained strong and often merged with adopted religions. Oral traditions. Rich oral traditions, myths, and legends formed an important part of cultural transmission. Craftsmanship. Highly skilled in metalwork, weaving, and wood carving. The quiet splash of boats navigating intricate canal systems, the rhythmic chanting of Buddhist monks or Hindu priests in temple complexes, the murmur of trade in bustling port cities. Chapter 21. Ancient Oceanian Societies, Navigators, Storytellers, and Adapters. Ancient Oceania, a vast realm of countless islands spread across the Pacific, was home to a diverse array of societies that achieved remarkable feats of navigation, adaptation, and cultural development. These peoples, primarily of Austronesian descent, embarked on epic voyages, settling islands across Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia, and establishing unique ways of life shaped by their island environments. The Lapita culture. They settled islands across a vast area from New Guinea to Tonga and Samoa. This pottery serves as a key archaeological marker for their migration paths. Origin, often considered the ancestors of Polynesians, Micronesians, and some Melanesians, originated in Southeast Asia and spread eastward. Navigational prowess. The Lapita were master navigators, using sophisticated double-hulled canoes capable of long-distance voyages. Distinctive pottery, best known for their intricately decorated pottery, characterized by geometric patterns, stylized faces, and curvilinear designs, often made with a dentate stamp. Economy, practiced horticulture, raised pigs, chickens, and dogs, and relied heavily on fishing and marine resources. They transported domesticated plants and animals with them on their voyages. Village life, lived in settled coastal villages, often with houses built on stilts over water or along beaches. A strong emphasis on mana and tapu. They developed ingenious methods like terracing and irrigation to maximize agricultural output on limited land. Polynesian societies. Polynesia, a vast triangular region encompassing islands like Hawaii, New Zealand, Easter Island, Tahiti, Samoa. Their construction likely involved immense communal effort and ingenuity, though the society ultimately faced ecological collapse. Developed a distinctive warrior culture, elaborate wood carving, and the haka. They used sophisticated knowledge of stars, ocean swells, bird migrations, and cloud formations to navigate vast distances without instruments, often undertaking intentional two-way voyages. And Tonga was settled by skilled navigators in a series of planned voyages. Navigation. Polynesians were arguably the greatest navigators of the ancient world. Adaptation to islands. Each island group presented unique environmental challenges and opportunities, leading to diverse cultural adaptations while maintaining core Polynesian traditions. Social structure. Generally highly hierarchical societies, with chiefs claiming divine descent, priests, and commoners. Economy based on horticulture, fishing, and the cultivation of local plants. Art and craftsmanship, renowned for their intricate wood carving, tattooing, featherwork, and bark cloth production. Easter Island, famous for its massive stone statues, carved from volcanic rock and transported across the island, representing ancestral chiefs or deities. Maori settled New Zealand around 1200 to 1300 CE, adapting to its cooler, temperate climate. Hawaii developed a complex, stratified society with powerful chiefs and an emphasis on surfing and hula. Micronesian society's location. Scattered islands north of Melanesia, including federated states of Micronesia, Marshall Islands, Kiribati. Navigation. Also skilled navigators, using unique stick charts to represent ocean swells and island locations. Unique structures. The island of Pohnpei is known for Nan Madol, a remarkable ancient city built on artificial islands constructed from basalt columns, serving as the ceremonial and political center of the Storyteller dynasty. Melanesian societies. Location. Islands like New Guinea, Fiji, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, New Caledonia. Diversity. Extremely diverse, with thousands of languages and cultures, reflecting longer periods of human settlement and varied environments. And the distant calls of seabirds defined the daily lives of these incredible ancient oceanic societies. Agriculture. Many societies in New Guinea practiced intensive agriculture for millennia, cultivating root crops and bananas. Art and ritual, known for vibrant and diverse artistic traditions, including elaborate masks, carvings, and ritual objects. Social organization varied from egalitarian village structures to complex chiefdoms, often with big men rather than hereditary chiefs. General aspects of daily life in ancient Oceania. Reliance on the ocean. The sea was central to life, providing food, transportation, and a spiritual connection. Sustainable resource management. Many societies developed sophisticated methods for managing limited island resources, including terracing, irrigation, and complex fishing techniques. Oral traditions, history, genealogies, spiritual beliefs, and navigational knowledge were passed down through incredibly rich and detailed oral traditions, chants, and songs. Community and kinship. Strong emphasis on kinship ties and communal living. Material culture utilized natural materials like wood, stone, shell, and plant fibers to create tools, weapons, canoes, and everyday objects. Spiritual beliefs deeply connected to the environment, ancestors, and a spiritual world often intertwined with daily life. The quiet lapping of waves against a canoe. The murmur of ancestral stories around a fire. The rhythmic pounding of taro for food.